Greetings everybody, welcome back, it's UK here with another vid. Continuing my Games I've Played series. And today I will be talking about AD&D First Edition. It's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the classic. Really, this was the game I had originally wanted to play when I first found out about D&D, when I was about 9. But it wasn't until the late 80s, about a year before second edition D&D came out, that I actually managed to get it. My parents were very sneaky. They gave a load of money to my friend Chris, who went over to our game store in Cambridge, and on Christmas Day I got the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and both monster manuals, and I was over the moon. Yay! And over the next year, I bought all of the other hardcover books for it, bar the Fiend Folio, which basically you could not get for love nor money. And in fact, I only actually got a copy of that book about 10 years ago, give or take. And the problem was, back then, that was a very rare book. So either, even in the 90s, when you had the internet and you could look for like eBay and secondhand games, it went for a fortune. It just wasn't, it's not worth that sort of money. So yeah, I got AD&D First Edition about a year before second came out, and my friends and I played that. I won't say religiously, but we played a lot. We played a lot of different games when we were at the end of our high school era. But AD&D was one of the, well, for me, it was one of the more popular ones. I know my friend Chris was never a big D&D fan. A couple of the other guys liked Call of Cthulhu or what have you. And, but it was D&D, it was what I wanted to play. After second edition came out, I still probably played for about, well, I played both, to be fair. I played second edition, but I still ran first edition for about 6 months or so before I decided to jump ship to second edition. And I sold off all my first edition books. Get really comfortable again. And I sold them to my mate Big Dave, who then did nothing with them. I think he even just threw them out after a while. And it was about 10-15 years ago I decided to rebuy them. I would never run the game again, and I'll touch on that shortly why. But for me, regardless of what edition of the game you play, or I was about to say whatever game you play, but if like me, you come from a D&D background, what for me makes it is first edition is the classic. It is for me the original, and I want that collection. I'm still missing a couple of books. What am I missing? I think I'm missing Oriental Adventures and Greyhawk Adventures. I'm sure I've got the Dragonlance Adventures ones. And I've got the 2 survival guides, and I've got Manual of the Planes. I don't have a copy of Deities and Demigods, though. I never owned a copy of that. And that's mainly, I should get it for the collection, I suppose. But that's mainly because I don't like the idea of gods having stats. I think they were beyond that, but that's probably a topic for another video. So as I was saying, I've got it for the collection, because for me it is the archetypal D&D, and every so often I like to pull one of those books off the shelf and just flick through it and think of the memories, the good times that we had. I tell you though, right now, I don't remember any of the characters that we played, or that the guys played, and but I do remember sitting down and basically trying to write a campaign Now, bear in mind that I had previously, in the few years before I'd been role playing, I had played Call of Cthulhu and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, RuneQuest. Pardon me. And D&D kind of plays very differently to those. You've kind of got to build your encounters differently, and you've got to base things around experience points and the like and the treasure. And I ended up buying like a whole big A4 notepad and just scribbling stuff down. And while the campaign never really worked, it was kind of a load of bump. I think I was just too excited to finally have to own a proper Dungeons and Dragons rather than just the basic game. I do have some random memories of what I wrote. I don't remember all of it, but I remember random things. But AD&D moved on. Second edition was a vast improvement. And this comes back to why I was talking about a moment ago, where I could never, I'm not going to say never, but I don't think I could run first edition again. The problem is those rules are awful in the light of how role-playing games are written and done now. They're not properly, they're not written out very well. They don't really flow. They don't really tell you what you need to do. It's far too wordy. We had to make stuff up, which is what you do in a role-playing game. But until we got hold of things like the Wilderness and Dungeoneer Survival Guides, which actually had skills as an additional rule for the game, you didn't have anything like that in the original version of first edition. And so what did you do when someone wanted to climb a wall? You either said they did it, or you had to do things like, as we did, we'd go, right, well, give us a dex check. And if you could roll your dex or less on a d20, you managed to climb the wall. Same for things like grappling, I believe, is what we had to do then, is just post strength check. And whoever passed by the most won, I don't know, it just, I think because it's such an old system and things have improved a lot since then, I think it would be very difficult for me to try and run a game, even just a one-off, although I am tempted. And once I had a chance to play second edition, and I'll come to that in the next vid when I do it, it was like, yeah, this is much better worded, much better, it reads easy, and I know what I'm doing. And so basically that's one of the reasons why I sold off my old first edition books and moved to second. It's difficult for me because first edition, as I keep saying, and you're probably bored of me saying it, but first edition to me is Dungeons and Dragons. It may not have been the greatest rule system, but for me it's what I think of in a way when I think of fantasy role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons is a household name, and it's like that for a reason. And that rule set brought a lot of people into the hobby. And a lot of people stayed and moved on to second edition and expanded the hobby. And if it hadn't been for D&D, I know D&D had a previous edition, the very original print run, which is an entirely different game again, and one I've never seen in the flesh, nor have I ever played. But to me, first edition is kind of where role-playing took off. That is the grandfather of all games to me. And there's such a nostalgia for it in my head. I love it. That's why I still own the books. Every so often, as I say, I like to just pick them up and read through it and get that nostalgia back. Smell the print. They had some. I'm one of those people. I love the smell of print, and the smell of the D&D print is. I don't know. It just really brings back those memories of those early days of gaming, when we were all still getting into the hobby. So yeah, although in the scheme of things, playing the game for about 18 months, not as long as most people probably played it back then, but I have some really good memories of that. And if it wasn't for D&D, I wouldn't be here now, role playing 30 odd years later and doing these bits. Anyway, not sure what else I can really go into on this one, but thank you for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. Do you still play? I know a lot of people still play First Edition out there, but if you do, fantastic. Let me know how it goes. If you had any experiences, good or bad, with it, let me know. I'd love to read them. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thank you for watching. Take care, guys, and good gaming.